Well, then we'll have you Sunday. So he didn't even hesitate to want to share his testimony. So you want to sit?
I'm gonna say,
As soon as you sit, I will help you get it adjusted.
testing, test. Well,
It's good.
testing. Okay, how's everybody doing tonight? First of all, I want to thank everybody for coming out to listen to me, and I hope that y'all can touch someone's soul with my testimony and certain things I'm going to put out. Well, here we go. And yeah, they say you get a little nervous when you get up here. They ain't lying. They ain't lying. But listen, I know who's got this. God does. But listen, it's like this. What happened was when I was 13 years old, I was introduced to pot. My brothers and them, I had 3 older brothers, 16, 17 older cousins. I was always the youngest one and wanted to try. I wanted to be just like them. But when I smoked pot, it was good. It was too good. It was too good, It led on to other things. Like I guess I was like 14, trying to picture everything together. I was 14 years old. I started drinking, and things with my brothers and cousins and whoever would buy it for me. And then I run and try to find it anywhere. And, my mother found out, and my brother and them got in trouble, so they wouldn't let me hang around them. They said I was bad influence to them. And I was like, I think y'all was to me, but I left that alone. But I think I was like 14, 15 years old, and I was having this old lady, I got addicted to drinking, because I liked it too, and throughout my years, I really can't remember really going to school. I went to school, but I was like a clown, and I was one of focused. I just wanted, I was even smoking pot in high school, I can't even believe I did that, We went out on the playgrounds, we would smoke and come back in and, la, 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 and the day be all wet. But then get back home, and what I do, wanted to go out and try to be with my friends and start drinking and trying to, find it and things. And I ended up getting a job washing dishes and things, and I tried to support my drinking habit at that early age, I couldn't do it. And things that then I think I was like 16 or 17 years old. I ended up trying to straighten myself up. I was like 15, I think. I started boxing and things, started trying to get my health back and doing good. I ended up doing pretty good in boxing. Matter of fact, we ended up, started like I was 15 or I was 17. I ended up winning Golden Gloves, 75 and 76. When, I was like 39 old record. I was doing pretty good, but, I didn't think I was good enough. So what did I do? I got back on drinking again and doing drugs. And then I ended up, I couldn't support my habit or nothing, so I ended up going out. This is pretty low, I was looking back. I was telling Susie, I remember me standing on that corner, 17, 18 years old, bumming money. Actually bumming money, 17 years old, 18. And I couldn't buy the liquor or nothing, and I would get the old winos I was hanging around, they would buy it for me, and we'd go in the alleys and drink it and things. And then I got to where I started, I don't know if y'all know what hobos are? Yeah, we went down there, they would jump off the train, and we would all be down there, and they would get the beer from liquor stores, and we all sit around bonfires and parties and stuff. I would bring them food, they would give me beer and things, and I would drink with them and have a jolly good old time, I thought. But then I'm like, here I was at 18, 19, I was like, I better get my life straightened out. Well, I went to work. Again, I pretty well worked all my life. I worked at a tar company. What did I do? Well, drank, got high. All throughout my life, it seemed like that's all I did. I didn't never remember nothing but being high. And that's all I knew. And then I ended up getting hooked up with some thought was friends. Well, I ended up got introduced to some real strong drugs. Back then it was called Galata. I don't know if everybody heard that. And back then, I never done smack. They call it smack, heroin. I never done none of that. But they had it was called Galata and cocaine. Cocaine was bad. Well, I couldn't support my habit. I was a rich man high. But I would, know someone sold it. So I would go get some for some people and I would make a little bit. But you can't, a little bit ain't enough when you're doing that stuff. Well, I ended up going and doing the worst things to get it. Instead of working, I couldn't support it that way. I started breaking in houses to get it. I'm like, I look back, I'm like, man, I'm lucky I didn't get killed, And that was a couple times. I got my brother and them would pick me up. I was young. They would throw me in a house, tell me go unlock the door. I would go unlock the door, come out. They would do their things, and they'd give me a couple of dollars for doing it. This time it was me jumping in the house. I jumped in the house. There was this old man in there. Scared me. I'm like, oh Lord. I'm like, I better get out of here before he shoots me. He's like, what are you doing, boy? I was like, oh, none, sir. He's like, well, get on out of my house. That sort of scared me, but it didn't slow me down. And then what happened? I got into a motorcycle gang, running around with them. One of the strongest, powerful motorcycle gangs in the state of Kentucky, all over the world. I don't know if you ever heard of the Louisville Outlaws and Green Reapers. I was running with them, and of course, they manufacturing drugs, they sell it, that's what they do. And that's how they make their living. Here I'm finding myself making runs and getting on a bike and going here and going there and making them all kinds of money. I was always, a follower. I never was a leader. And I'm like, something's wrong with this picture. Well, that's how I met Brother Bill. He pulled me over a couple of times on my motorcycle and told me, you need to take your bike home and things. That's, we laugh about that now. It's been like 45 some years ago I knowed him. But then I ended up, riding with them for a while and doing my thing with them. And then I was telling Susan, Lord, I've been shot 3 times. I got shot 3 times. It didn't slow me down. We was all standing around, and my brother got into it with this guy. And my brother whooped him, and he come back for revenge. We was with his mom. I was just standing there. We was all standing around drinking. She bring the bullet out through a crowd that was and hit me in the side of my head. He glazed my head, and I was like, like a bee sting. Then I got shot in the kneecap. And I'm like, Lord, what did I do to serve this, Back at it, that's being with the wrong people. And I'm like, well, that didn't slow me down either, I'm like, good Lord, you started drinking more. I drank more and done more drugs. It just seemed like that when I was, I don't know, throughout my whole life, I was 22 years old, 23. I ended up getting into a fight with a guy. I probably got about, I don't have no drug charges really, thank God. All the charges I got downtown is assault charges. I had 12 assault charges and 4 drunken driving offenses, about what the penitentiary over at. But getting back at it, when I was 17, 18 years old, I was going down, then I went on to 22. When I was 22 years old, I was telling you about me being in the game. Well, I started trying to live a better life and stuff and got into, I ended up getting into a fight at a bar. It hit a guy with a ball bat and it split his head open. Sorry for doing that. But getting back at it, I wasn't in my right state of mind. I was just living for the devil. And I had to sit on my front porch. I couldn't go nowhere. The guy was on life support with a real bad injury. And they kept coming by telling me, I couldn't go nowhere or nothing. If he dies, I'm going to be charged for manslaughter. And son, you don't even want to hear and sit there for almost 5 days waiting if I'm going to get locked up or not. And it was really self-defense. He's the one that caused it, but they didn't look at it that way. You the one done it, I said, okay, well, throughout all this stuff, I ended up getting Atlanta. I got worked at Bishop Packer Company, Armor Packer Company. I worked at a lot of nice big places. And then I was like, I was like throughout that, I'm like, I got to settle down and pull out of this. Well, I ended up getting married when I was 26 years old. Of all places where I met my wife at was in a bar. I'm like, well, we try to see what it'll work out. We ended up getting married when I was 26, 27. I went on going to be at a job at a fish. It was called Liquid Dry Foods back then. It was called Quaker Oats. I worked there. I was a laborer, and then I went on to being a maintenance man. I ended up being a supervisor, a little bit of everything out there. I was doing good for myself. Me and my wife was, and then my wife, she had a real bad gambling problem. I hope she's watching me out there. I don't care. I hope she does. But one thing I'm in the Lord's house, and she ain't. But I don't know. Me and her, she would have a bad gambling problem, which I would try to do anything to make her happy. And things, well, then I would go to bingo and play bingo with her and the gambling boat, everything, and we never had no money and things from gambling. And then I found myself, her son, I'm not talking about it. He had what it was, he didn't do drugs. He had a bad selling drugs. And his dad was the one that was giving him drugs. He was renting in my house. And he ended up selling crack. And I was trying to work like that, and every night I wake up, there'll be people, hey, can I get a dime bag? I said, what do you talk about? You need to get out in front of my house, away from my house. And I ended up having to literally hit them people. I didn't want to. I ended up breaking a guy's leg and things. They tried to run up on me, looked like zombies, eyes all big. And you didn't know what they was going to do, pull out on you or what, nothing. I was tired of fighting with them. So I ended up leaving. I'm like, y'all can have it. Well, we ended up, talking and working our difference back. I went back in it. And here I am, like, thinking things is getting better for me. And Robin, well, turn around. And what happens? It happens again. She lets her son have his way. And I'm like, I had to leave again. We ended up leaving about 5 or 6 times. And then I end up, really, after them years and stuff, we was married like 20-some years. And I end up wanting to do better for myself. I said, I'm going to get away from this stuff. Well, I end up, moving back to my mom's, which she didn't never turn me down. My mom or dad didn't. They always said, you can come back, get away from that stuff. Up there, cops called all the time. Being guns pulled on us. My house got raided twice. They kicked my doors in. It tore my house completely up and didn't have nothing to do with me. I said, sir, I said, got nothing to do with me. He said, you bound to know something going on. Look at all this money here. I said, listen, I don't see nothing. I rent that room to him in the front. Well, he owned his house. And he was trying to bring me into it. They busted him. And I was facing penitentiary time. I'm listening. They found a half ounce of crack, 3 ounces of crack and a half ounce of cocaine. They said someone's reliable for us. I said, listen, it ain't got nothing to do with me. I promise you. Well, he was trying to arrest me. And I told Robin, I said, listen, if I'm going to go to jail for this time, this much time, I'm going to kill one of these guys. I'm going to tell you, they better get up there and admit this ain't my drugs. And she said, like, they talked to him, and we ended up going through trial and everything. And my stepson got time, and his dad did too. Well, they set me free by going in there telling them that it wasn't my stuff, but which it didn't help me get my doors kicked in and everything. Well, then I'm like, well, I think I learned, and they did too. And here, about 2 years later, he gets out. What happens is the same thing. He gets back, gets our door kicked in again. I'm like, I got to go. I'm not being around this stuff. But when she's like, well, he'll change. Well, no, he didn't change. Things didn't change for me either. It just made me more wanting to go out for revenge. And things I told her, I was like, I'm not living that, but looking back at how many times God has spared my life. I got locked up, I was in real bad shape from doing drugs, I would drink, I got to where I was drinking a fifth of whiskey a night on the weekends. Friday and Saturday both. That's a lot of whiskey. And I would drink a whiskey and smoke pot and a little bit of everything. And then I ended up, they found out I found out I had a cirrhosis of the liver, hepatitis C. I'm like, what is this from doing so many drugs? And alcohol started to attack your liver. And I said, and I didn't know nothing about that. Back then, what is it, I was a cure for it. Well, I said, I didn't know what stage it was in or nothing. They told me, yeah, you're in a liver failure 2. You're in stage 2 cancer. I said, what? Stage 2 cancer? He said, yeah. I said, what am I going to do about that? I quit drinking. He said, no, you got to get rid of what's going on. How did I get rid of it? He said, well, you got to take 15 treatments of Pegasus. Well, we tried 15 treatments of Pegasus. It didn't work. And then with Furon, they tried 6 of them, shooting them in me. It was like chemotherapy, what it was. And then I ended up doing them. It didn't work. He's like, he still got it. And here I'm crying out to the Lord. I'm not lying. I'm fighting for my life. And I'm like, what am I going to do? I'm sitting there. It's getting worse and worse. My kidneys are starting to shut down. I lost my hair, everything for the chemo. Well, I'm like, I'm praying to God and praying hard. And then I get a phone call. They tell me as the outburst come through, they meet me in the office. I went in the office. They gave me 6 pills. He said, take this. I took the 6 pills. And then, by the grace of God, it cleared my hepatitis. And then I started doing better. Then I knew I had hope. I'm like, I'm going to start straightening my life up. I got to get my liver from almost 2 or 3 back down somehow. See, your liver can regrow. It's the only organ in your body that can reproduce itself. But then I started doing better and things, and then I ended up going back to my wife again. All these years, all this time, went back again. And then I ended up, went back to her, and then, of course, but again, we split up again over her son. I hate keeping the blaming on him, but that's the truth. But then I end up getting back. I ended up buying me another Harley, and I'm like, you know what? I'm through. I'm gonna get wild. So what I do, I started hanging back around my friends, my biker friends, and things, and we was all hanging around things, and I was sort of, don't know what happened that night or whatever, but it was several times that we rode and things, and I'm back hanging with them, and we, one night, I'm just going to say, I couldn't be here all night. I'll be here all night with my story. But we started to take a bike run. I think it was like 12 of us. We went all the way to Peewee Valley and back. And then we all branched off, and there was like 4 of us sitting around things. And a friend of mine, so on the 22nd Street, he blew a jug on his motorcycle. He had his grandson on the back, and I said, here, I'll ride him on in. We stopped at the 22nd Street gas station on Portland, which that's why I lived in Portland, South End Portland, a little bit everywhere. We pulled over in there and to get some gas and things, and he asked him to get me a soft drink, and he went there to get me a soft drink. And I'm going to tell you something. Let me back it up a little bit. What happened was we was back there in this garage, which we all back there meet at and party and things. And here this girl comes up, this a biker friend of mine, and she's all drunk and everything. I said, Christine, what are you doing? I said, these guys are going to rape you, don't you see them? Oh, honey, all drunk and stuff. I said, won't you go in there, go over and lay down? Lay down. There was a little bench-type seat. Oh, no, blah, blah, blah. Well, I'm like, she said, I wish I could lay down and blah, blah. Well, I was a gentleman. I promised you. I took her in there and later I told her to get in bed, lay down. And things. I come back out there, and then he rolled by. Where's Christine? Yeah, she's in her bed. What's she doing? I said, yeah, I put her in bed. Yeah, you put her in bed, all right. He's thinking I messed with his wife, which I didn't. I promise you I did. I told him, I said, man, you got things messed up, Jimmy. I didn't mess with her. Well, he ended up, running his mouth, he's going to do this to me and Dad. Well, I ended up coming over, and I pulled him off his bike and whooped him, and that's how easy that was. I said, you ain't going to do nothing to me, see? But then he had, what it was, we had made that bike run I was talking about, and he was the one, he was gunning for me, and he was out to kill me. And I kind of realized that and things. And what happened was, we was all back there, and I told you I made that bike run. We come back, and there was a bunch of them left. There was about 4 of us standing around. And I remember, but when we stopped on 22nd Street, that guy, Jimmy Knoll, he took some, I don't know if everybody heard of methadone. He took methadone. When I asked him to get me a Big Red, he went there and got me a drink, all right. He walked around the side of the building, and he poured some methadone in my Big Red. Methadone is red, looks like Big Red. And I tasted, I said, this don't even taste right. So they ran CO2 in there. Just drink it, shut up. It'll be all right. Just drink it, shut up. Well, here you drink it. I got one. I got one, mine just tasted bad. When I was on driving, I was feeling a little leery and stuff. That's why we were staying in the garage. At that point, I don't remember nothing after that. And I'm like, man, what's going on? I don't remember even talking to no one or nothing. And then they said that I got on my motorcycle. I kicked it down in gear, and they said that's the last time I remember. They said I hit a wall here, that back through the door, hallway door, full blast, and I went over top of the motorcycle, over top of the wall, and the motorcycle come over and crushed my neck and broke it in half. And I'm not talking about just twisted my neck. I'm talking about broke it in half. My neck was turned around on the back of my head. Oh, man, it was terrible. Well, I was in a coma for 36 days. They couldn't. Had a windshield off the motorcycle sticking to my head 4 inches. They couldn't remove it. They said if they did, blood would come out in blood clouds and things. Well, they couldn't remove it for 3 days because my head swelled up so big. Well, a team of doctors from Lexington come down there, and they poured the windshield on my head, and I had 154 stitches in front of my head, 250 in the back, and my head was swelled up, had a drain tube down there. Well, then my neck was, where I broke my neck, I was paralyzed, my neck down. I couldn't walk or nothing. Well, I was in a coma for 36 days. And then I come out of the coma, I was in so much pain and things, they had to seduce me back into a coma because they said that they would OD me. They would be the one to kill me. They had to seduce me back into a coma. They did that, and I think it was like another 23 days, Mom said. And my sister Molly was here, she'll tell you. But then, after I got off that, I ended up 36 days, they put me, I was in the ICU unit. I was doing good and everything, and then they put me in a room with a guy who had his leg cut off, and he had a sepsis. And then they was throwing his wrappings in my garbage can next to my bed. And it was airborne and scar in the front of my head. It got into it. And then I went into another coma where I was in a temperature of 107 for 4 days. They couldn't get it broke. They piped me with ice and did everything and tried to get me back, to where it would go down. And then they called in the family. They told me, well, when he comes back, he won't do that with Slater. He'll be a vessel. He would never be able to do nothing. And they started praying for me. I'm like, man, this is something you don't even want to hear. Well, then they prayed for me, and they said that I woke up about, I don't know how many days later, 4 or 5 days later, and I looked around and said, where's everybody at? And that doctor said, do you know where you at? I said, yeah, and I'm in the hospital. Oh, wow. He's like, wow, it's cool. Bruce is doing all right. Well, then I ended up getting out of that and pulling out of that, but then they couldn't do nothing to me at Fraser Rehab. There was nothing they do for me. They tried everything. I was paralyzed, my neck down. And that's something you never want to wake up to if someone tell you you would never walk again. You in your 50s or early 40s. and here, tell you that you'll never walk again. I shake my head and I said, listen, that's man, dog. But I prayed and prayed. Well, I went to 2 nursing homes. They couldn't do nothing with me. They sent me, well, my wife just told me. She didn't want nothing to do with me. So that's cool. So I ended up going to my mom's. And I'm laying there, people would come in, and I'm like, I couldn't use my hands. I couldn't do nothing. I had a hospital bed with one of them clear through hoses taped to it, stuck down in a cup every day. And he would put like 3 or 4 gallons down in a cup. And I would take a drink of it every now and then, and that's how I drank. And then I had a feeding tube stuck down my throat, chest. They would pour 6 cans of that milk in it every day. That's how I ate. I couldn't eat myself. I couldn't eat for myself. I couldn't even feed myself. And my throat was crushed. And things. That's why sometimes I have hard times getting to talk because my voice is real deep. And I busted my eardrums, and that's why I talk real low. If I talk real low, y'all don't pay no attention. It's just I'm talking, sound like I'm talking low. And me staggering through there, don't think I'm drunk or nothing. I'm just trying to get around. I have problems with my legs and things. But I'll tell you what, God's been good to me. Yes, but, oh, man. Man. Hold on. But then I prayed and prayed, and then I'm laying there. And you just don't know, man, when you get like that, your wife just on you. You don't have no friends no more. You don't see nobody. You missing fishing, going hunting. I miss all that stuff. I used to be a race car driver. I drove a race car. And had a nice race car, and I couldn't even drive it. I had to sell it. Had to sell my motorcycles, and then you just like, that wasn't the important thing right now. The most important thing to me was getting back up on my feet, which they said I would never walk. And I was like, the doctor said, you would never walk. I started praying and praying and praying. I laid in bed for 7 years looking at the ceiling. 7 years, yeah. And then one day before my dad died, he said he seen a big bright light. And I talked to Everett Bruce. I told him, I said, Dad, see, they had him on morphine. And things. I thought he was just hallucinating from it. He said, I seen a real big bright light. It was pretty, Bruce. It was pretty. And then after that, several hours, he went on to be with the Lord. My dad did. Hope he's up there in heaven, Dad. But I'm thinking, Lord, I'm laying in bed praying and praying. And I had churches praying for me. I had church I went to church. Don Combs was my pastor, family pastor for the last 30-something years. I've known Don. Randy, I known all of them. I went to church. I played the church, but I played the church like a fool. I was going to act like I know the church just to get out of charges and things. And like I said, I got locked up 4 times for drunken driving. And back then, it was like a mother's against tap drunken driving. And I got locked up, believe it or not, twice in one night. You ever heard anybody doing that? Yeah, I got locked up at 4 o'clock in the morning. The next day at 8 o'clock in the night, I was locked up again. The same judge looked at me and said, didn't I just see you? And I'm like, he's like, man, you got a drinking problem. I said, yeah, I do. And he's like, that's your 4th offense. Well, I didn't think nothing of it. And then he was talking about, a 4th offense is a felony. A felony. I said, when did he said, well, Mothers Against Drunken Driving, they tapped. They made it a felony. He said, you've been locked up 4 times in 3 years, so you're facing penitentiary time. I'm like, what? Penitentiary time? So I had to get a real good lawyer, and thank God I worked at Fisher Pine Company and had a good job. They don't want to put nobody in penitentiary. Got a real good job, and they can do it. Well, I ended up having to, pay my way out of it. Well, I ended up, giving the lawyer, buying him and stuff. Well, and he kept me out of penitentiary. But then again, I was saying I was laying on my bed and praying to the Lord for some help, some way or another. I'd been told I would never walk again. That bright light that I was telling you about, one morning I was laying in bed, my hospital bed, watching TV and looking at, there's a picture that I still got it, that one that's Mom Susie, the one that I told you, I was looking up at it. It's a picture of God knocking on the door. And I noticed the door handle don't have no knobs on it. Heaven don't have knobs on door handles. Well, I was looking at it and wondering how it would be to come in heaven, and how it would be. And I talked to the Lord and everything. Then a big bright light that my dad said he seen appeared in my room. And you taught me scared. I thought I was dying. I'm like, is that the same light that now is God going to call me home? Thinking to myself, well, it wasn't nothing like that. He told me, I couldn't tell you what it looked like or not. It was the sun floating. A soft voice told me, get up and walk, my child. I said, I can't walk. Who are you? He said, I'm your Lord and Savior. I'm your Father. Get up and walk, my son. I said, I can't walk. And then he started playing. He started fading away. And I said, where'd you go at? Where'd you go at? Well, I had a bell next to my bed I would ring. And that would get my mom's attention because I couldn't yell. I couldn't talk at the time. She'd come in there and I said, God, come to me. I was explained to her, oh, you had a bad dream, Bruce. He said that you just had a bad dream. I said, no, Mom, this wasn't no dream. And my brother looked at me and said, what did he say? I said, he told me to get up and walk. He said, well, come on. And he put that gate bell on me. I kid y'all not. It took me 1 week to walk around my hospital bed. 1 week. I got up, the power of God, this ain't no lie. And he was holding that gate bell, and I walked from the length of one room with my walker, next room, next thing you know, I'm walking back and forth through my house in about a month's time. About 3 months, I'm getting walking down there. I'm like, man, God is good. You tell me he ain't good. Everybody's clapping, proud of me, and I'm getting phone calls and everything. I heard you walking. I said, yeah. I'm walking. I went to my doctor's office, and I had an appointment to go pick my medicine up. And they wouldn't let me get my medicine. They would make me come in there by ambulance, anything to get my medicine. They wouldn't give it to me. They'd make me come in and get it. But that one day, I couldn't wait to go in there. I couldn't wait. I went in there, and the doctors were sitting around. He had his book. He said, has there been any change? I said, yes, it has. Yes, it has. What happened? I said, I can walk. He said, you can't walk. I told you, it had to be a miracle to make you walk. Chris Marie didn't walk. He said, you broke your neck, Mr. Wallace. And I said, you remember, they done 13 nerve studies on me and told me one day they stuck needles in my head all through my body, and they told me one day you will walk again. It might not be today, it might need 5 years, but you will walk. Put your faith and have hope in God. And that's what I did. I went back, I told that doctor, and he said, well, I said, yeah. They told me I would walk. I'm walking. He said, you can't walk. I stood up. His eyeballs got big as light bulbs. He went, what? Oh, my Lord. He went over there. He said, wow. I took 3 steps toward him. He started crying. He ran over and hugged me, started crying. He said, y'all come here. Y'all come here. Bruce is walking. He can't walk. He's handicapped. He's walking today. He started doing he said, you know what? I would never tell no one they could never walk again. God has performed a miracle. You should never, ever walked. And I'm like, the grace of God, that's something, to be proud of, But that's it, y'all. But my job is on now. Like I said, I had surgeries. 2 surgeries in the last 2 years, one on my arm, one on my back. And I was hurting and things. And of course, some pain pills, I'm trying to get off of them, but I can't. I get high blood pressure. But then I started feeling myself leaning again towards that. I'm like, oh, no. I know what the cost is at. Well, thank God, the grace of God. He's got his hands on me, and he's looking out for me. And he's not going to let me go that way. listen, I hope someone got touched by this tonight, and I did a good job for y'all. But thank y'all for listening. Y'all have a good night. May God be with you.
I said, you want to get up? I said, he goes, no, remember, I can't walk. Boy, you better get your bum up. Come on. So, I mean, yeah, isn't God good? The doctors don't know. I mean, you know, you hear things, oh, they're. I remember Tony's mom, when she got really bad sick, they were like, she's in kidney failure. They were like, she's not going to make it. Like, this is the end for her. And I remember the doctor come in and said, hey, you're going to have to decide what you're going to do. And me, of course, I was like, I see her test results. I see them. They're horrible. Like, I can see that her kidneys are not working. And Tony was like, oh, no. We're not doing this yet. This is not happening. I remember him saying, this has happened a little too fast for me. You're going to have to stop for a second. And I'm like, are you crazy? Did you hear what they said? And he was like, no. He was like, we're going to wait. And he was patiently waiting and praying for her. I remember him being by her bedside and praying, Lord, don't take my mom. And it's so sad because we just, in those times, you just want to give up because you're like, they're lifeless, you know, but God can do anything. And I remember the very next day, she was sitting up in that bed talking to us, and I was like, what is going on? Yes, she didn't live that much longer after that, maybe a few months, but we still got to bring her here, and we got to be with her in her last days. So that in itself was so great. But it's like when you feel like giving up, and they tell you you're not going to walk again, you know, and you're sick and you're going to die of cancer or whatever. I mean, like my dad, I probably would have gave up a long time ago if I was him. Because I remember when they told us, you know, his cancer is not operable. You can't operate on it. It will kill him. And I'm like, okay, for how long? A year? Like, we'll wait a year. And he was like, I'm never getting the surgery. And that from a parent to tell you I'm not going to do a surgery, you're like, yes, you are. And he's like, no, I'm not. And so I immediately was like, Lord, you're going to have to heal him. But Dad was like, if I die tomorrow, I'm okay. I'm good. He was like, you know, my wife is waiting for me. My son is there. And so you have to take that and say, wow, the faith, you know, because it is. It's like, but I know God can still heal him. I'm not worried. Like, he has more faith than I do. Because I'm like, oh, God, you're going to die. Like, if you don't get your blood transfusions or iron, you're going to die. And I tell him that. I'm like, you have to do this. And he's like, I don't want to. I'm tired. I'm just worn out. And I'm like, oh, you're not ready. But I know that God's going to heal you. If he doesn't heal him, then to die is to gain. And so I'm like, give me peace about the whole thing. But I know that God is with him and he's with us. And it's just like, I hear these stories and I'm like, wow, they're so great. Because the people that come up here and told their stories, they should not be here. Tony should not be here. I mean, the stuff that he tells me, I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, how are you still here? Because he has a purpose. All the people who've been up here have a purpose. They have a purpose to rather help somebody else in that same situation or somebody in their family. You know, it's like, I've never dealt with the drug problem ever. But people come up to me all the time and say, because they know that, you know, I'm married to Tony, and I'm like, I don't know anything about drugs, but I can pray for you. Because if they can save my husband, God can save you. And so it's never too late for you, ever too late. And so just never, ever give up, like, in everything that you do. Like, I wish I had as much faith as my husband. I've been a Christian my whole life. Yes, there's been times I have backslid and I went my own way and did my own thing. But I remember I always came back to God. And I'm like, I've been a Christian. I was raised in church my whole life. Had great Christian parents. And then I look at Tony that's a newly Christian, and he has way more faith than I do sometimes. It blows my mind. When he changed jobs, I was so mad at him, I was about to knock him out. I said, what are you doing? Changing jobs. No, you're not. We are buying a house. You make good money. Are you crazy? What is wrong with you? He's like, I have to. This job is killing me. And of course, I don't understand because I don't do his job. It's easy for me to say when I'm at home, And so I'm like, fine, you do whatever you want to do. I'm mad. So then, of course, I get mad at him, and I'm like, if we lose our house and our car and everything, I'm giving him this guilt trip. And he brings his first paycheck home, and I'll tell you, he brings his first paycheck home, $400. What am I supposed to do with this? And he says, I'm not worried. What do you mean you're not worried? You don't do the paycheck. You don't do the checkbook. I do. I pay the bills. What do you mean you're not worried? He's like, do you think God is going to take everything we have when we literally give everything we have to God? What do you say to that? I had to shut up right then and there. I was choking on my own tongue. And I was like, okay, we'll see your next paycheck. Better be better than this one. And he's like, I'm not worried. But then I gave him that little bit of doubt. Like you get. And he's like, I'm so worried. He's like, did I make a mistake? And I was like, no, you didn't make a mistake. You did the right thing. You did what was good for you. And he's like, you're right. I don't care. He's like, I'm going to work and I'm going to get paid good money. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to work, and it really bothered him. I could tell he was carrying the burden of our family and our finances on his shoulders. But it never once really after that part. He was like, I'm not worried. God, you've got this. Take that $400, pay our bills, pay our tithes. And God has blessed us with way more than what he was making before in our finances. And I was like, thank you, Jesus, because my husband had faith that you weren't going to hurt us. I was freaking out. I'm sorry, Lord. I'm sorry for doubting you, because we all do. We all do. But I was like, please, God, help me. Forgive me for not trusting you, and I prayed, and I was like, I'm so sorry. And wow, his faith, it's so inspiring to me. Even on the days I want to choke him out, which are daily. But it is. But his faith is so, I don't even know why I said that. I guess because it was just on my mind. I wanted to testify about that because we're supposed to share our good things. When God blesses us, we are supposed to share those so people know to give your tithes. Because even when we were making nothing, we were still paying our tithes. I would try to jip it. He would sell his copper. He'd get, $800 or $900. Don't you forget, take that tithe money out there. This is my money. What are you talking about, tithe money? And he would get me, and I was like, oh, he's a very faithful giver, and God will literally, if you give faithfully, he will bless you so much. I cannot tell people enough, give your tithes. Even if it's, 50 cents, give it. But, so what an awesome testimony, Bruce. You did a great job, for real. God is a healer. He healed you. He can heal anybody. And does anybody have anything they want to say or need prayer, or anybody need testimony or anything? Anybody? We'll remember Doug for sure. We're a praying church. Ryan, my brother-in-law, came today, and he's like, you have a special church. He's like, I can feel it. He's like, Sister Stephanie and Charlie blessed me so much today. He's like, I couldn't stop watching them. And that's what it is. Yeah, he's like, I couldn't stop watching them. It blessed my heart. When people come in here and they see how obedient you are to God, don't think it's going unnoticed. I mean, not that you're putting on a show for anybody, but people are watching. People that come in here that never go to church, and they see it. He was like, it blessed me so much. And to hear him say that, because he don't really talk like that, but he's like, you have a special church. I'm like, we do. And I was like, we pray, and we are family here. And he was like, you really have a special church, and I love your church so much. I'm like, yeah, I moved to Louisville, and you can come and be a part of that church. And if he ever does, he sure will, I'm almost certain, because we have a very special church. But I wanted to share that with you guys. He was so blessed today by just watching you worship. He's like, you can tell the people who are close to God, because it shows, they shine. That's what he said. He said they were shining. And I was like, that is so cool. And he's like, he follows you on Facebook, and he's like, I see their videos, and he's like, he wants to shine like that. And I'm like, you can. You just have to go to God, because he's the only one that can make you shine. And I'm like, and it's so cool. I wanted to tell you guys that he did say that. So keep doing what you're doing, because people are watching, and you're being an example to those who don't know how to shine just yet. They're like, I want what they've got. And then when they do get it, there's no turning back after that, because God is so good. He is so good. But the women's ministry, they had their food today, and they had leftovers. There's some desserts and some drinks and some sides or salads back there, so they said we could